Morning or afternoon, question mark.
Morning.
So we'll get started like right around noon. Morning, everybody. We're gonna get started in like 2 minutes. I'm gonna start weaning people off the 3-minute rule because you gotta show up on time. Okay, folks, I'm gonna start, and all those people who are late will just miss my announcements. Okay, I have 2 things for you. Oh my God, look at all these people just suddenly showing up. It's like they knew that I was about to start at 12:01. Okay, so first announcement is we talked about in our brokerage call like about a week and a half ago, a little bit more, I think so, or maybe it was just a week ago. It's just a week ago. Anyway, we were talking about Dotloop and how they have opted into sharing data to Zillow because they're owned by Zillow. We had a great discussion about whether we should opt in or opt out of that, and we decided to opt out as a company. So we are sending an email to Dotloop, and we will not be sharing data as an entire company. So I just wanted to keep you guys up to date on that we thought about it and made a decision. And my last announcement is, you guys already know this already, and it's also the law, but please wear your masks, especially when you are showing houses. Make sure that you are wearing those very diligently. Also, if you haven't caught on to this trend, these plaid masks, like you can just keep them around your neck, so you're like always wearing a mask, and then it kind of works as like a trendy neck scarf type thing too. Yeah, see, Michelle just demonstrated for everyone. So I've like been mistaken, like people have thought this was a trendy neck scarf, and then I was like, nope, it's a mask. So anyway, catch on to that trend and do that, please. Okay. Welcome to our monthly agent meeting. So happy that you're here. We had a last minute switcheroo. Spencer was supposed to be able to talk on Bates Hendricks this morning, but he had to duck out. But the lovely, our new agent, Sylva Zhang, decided to step up and talk about her neighborhood. I thought of her immediately because the way she talks about her neighborhood, Ransom Place, is like the sweetest thing. And I'm excited for you guys to hear it. So I'm going to pull up a map and then I'm going to let her take it away. Give me just 1 second, Sylva. Okay, go for it. Ooh, unmute yourself.
Hey, sorry. Thanks, Rosie.
Welcome.
Yeah, I am really excited to talk about Ransom Place because it is kind of a hidden gem. It's very small in terms of what is officially part of it, and it's also sort of bounded by things like strip malls, busy West Street. You'll see St. Clair also somewhat busy, but that being so small really gives it a sense of identity where our neighbors, like if you live in the neighborhood, we probably know you, and we have like a strong sense of community. We've got a lot of kids in the last 5 years. I would say probably 15 kids under 8 years old. And you'll see them like doing bike parades along the sidewalk, even outdoors with bikes. You can kind of spread out. So even with COVID, still a lot of bike parades. We've got a little pocket park that we just put in since I was there in the last 5 years, that has some of the history of the area, which it was part of the original African-American community back in the 1800s, partly because along the river and the canal, you've got wet, swampy land with a lot of mosquitoes. It was at that time the land that nobody else wanted, but it became a really incredible community. The street I live on, the 800 block of Camp, was referred to in the 1920s as the Black Meridian Street. Some really cool old homes, like the superintendent of public schools was in one home. You probably are starting to become familiar with the history of like Madam Walker, her attorney, Freeman Ransom, that Ransom Place is named for. He lived on California Street. I know the house that he lived in. My neighbor John lives there now. And then we just have a really interesting mix of people, like attorneys and doctors. We have a lot of people in the medical field, students. We've got handymen. We've got research scientists. We've got international students, a good amount of those too. We've got some professors. And we also have people who are on disability, or who have lived there for 30 years but are retired now. We have bright, active folks in their 90s. We have actually a brother-in-law and a sister-in-law who both have lost their spouses, but they share a duplex still on either side, in their 90s, and just still outside, great to chat with, telling the stories and the history of the neighborhood. And I think it's not super well known just how well situated it is on the corner, like the northwest corner of Mile Square. It's just outside of it, but at an angle and on the cultural trail. So it's really easy to go any direction by bike in the city. It's walking distance to all the hospitals, which is why we bought there. and then also super walkable to the canal, which is where I spend most of the time with my kids. So if you ever have any questions about Ransom Place, we have one house for sale right now, which was priced too high and has a wonky kitchen, so it's not moving yet. They're probably going to go lower on the price, sitting right at the corner of 9th and Camp, right across from this really incredible restoration of what was the Second Presbyterian Church. I was going to screen share to show you these, but I'll just send you a link to the article so that you can take a look at it later. And then, what was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, we have one that's going on the market this weekend on Pecos Street. It is 4 down from our old house. It is going to go on for sale by owner at first. A little inside scoop here, the attorney who lives there, he broke his knee, was going to go have knee surgery, saw the paperwork that he would need to sign. I was like, I'm not signing that, and did not ever get his knee fixed. So I understand why he's also choosing not to go with a realtor, even though it might be a better choice. But my lovely neighbors, they are going to be listing their house. It is I believe a 3-bedroom that's going to be about $345 is what they're planning to list at. So if you want details on that, let me know. Any other questions? I'd be happy to answer, but we love Ransom Place so much.
Yeah, Sylva, I think I wanted you to talk so bad today about Ransom Place because you're the first person I met who lives there. And it's kind of an unknown, not an unknown, but unknown to me neighborhood that just feels really, really sweet. And I love the way you talk about it. So yeah, thanks for sharing.
We also have chickens, so you can come visit our chickens and feed them too.
Yes.
Not
How
me,
many
but
chickens do you have?
the
Your neighbors.
Next to our old house that we still own have 4 chickens, and they all have names after dinosaurs, and they're pets. Like the kids hold them and walk around with them. And then my neighbor on my dad's house, my parents also bought a house in the neighborhood, and so we all walk around with each other. We used to walk and see Ross at Quill's all the time. They have 6 chickens, and they might end up eating theirs, so they don't have names.
Oh, oh, so good.
Yeah.
Sylva, thank you so much for sharing. That was amazing. Yeah, and Sylva just joined our brokerage. Was it last week, Sylva? Yeah, Sylva just passed her test and joined last week. So yeah, make sure to say hello. Steph, I'm really sorry that I'm about to call you out, but Steph Gray is also one of our new agents. Sorry, she's right down there on my screen. She's actually joining today. It's her first day as an agent. So everyone, if you could make a point to say hi to her next time you see her, that would be great. Okay, without further ado, we are joined today by Micah and Tatum Hill, owners of Compendium Group. They are phenomenal house builders. I don't know what the official title is, but if you've ever walked through one of their houses, you'll know that they're unreal beautiful. So Micah and Tatum, can you get started by introducing yourselves and telling us how you got into building?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Apparently we build really beautiful houses. Thanks, Rosie. You're sweet. There's actually a lot of faces and people on that I don't know. So hi, welcome. My name is Tatum Hill. I'm a realtor at Platt. I've been a realtor for about 2.5 years. Previous and currently also, as Rosie mentioned, my husband and I own Compendium Group. How did I get into building? Honestly, getting married to this guy, I guess. It was kind of like a hobby at night, helping clients and helping pick out different finishes and just helping him on the side. And the more and more I did it, the more I realized how much I really loved it. And the idea of like fully leaving the corporate world and jumping kind of all into business together was a little scary, but it's been great.
Hi, I'm Micah. I've been in the building world since as long as I can remember. as a kid and helped my dad and mom rehab homes and kind of work on our own place, and liked working with my hands. Add to it, I'm not a great student at all. Don't really enjoy school. So something more, I don't know, less, kind of analytical and more hands-on, and you can see the actual end result of your product. So really enjoyed it. Did internships all the way through high school, college, and got out of college and got right into it. It's been good.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing, guys.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit more about Compendium Group, your company, by itself? Like, how did that start? What has it been like? How long has it been around?
Sure. Well, I've been in the downtown area since 2000, working in home renovations, predominantly a little bit of multifamily, a little bit of commercial work. Was with another large builder here in the downtown area for 13 years, and then decided to go out on our own back in fall of 2015. So it actually was formed back in 2012, more as an acquisition LLC to go out and tie up some dirt and some land. And so at the time, the name didn't mean anything, and it was just kind of something on paper and wasn't ever meant to be client facing. And when we took it
To market.
yeah, when we took it full time in 2015, there was a discussion of like, does anyone know how to say this? Is this a bad idea? And the
Yeah, does it have a meaning behind Compendium?
Of course, yeah. I mean, it's an English word, but it has its roots in Latin, and it means to take a canon or a large group of information as a whole and present it as a single entity. So the idea, I mean, it kind of works with building, right? Like that's what you do.
Yeah.
But it if you don't say it right, it's okay. We don't either sometimes.
Okay, but it is Compendium, right? I'm saying it right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Nailed it.
Jesus. You made me
Just like
nervous
that.
for a second.
Just like that mask thing you just did there. You really nailed the
You nailed it.
execution. Good job.
I can't tell if I need to flip you off right now or not. I can't tell if it's sarcasm.
Never.
Okay, what
anyways.
do you guys? Yeah, no, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, so that's kind of how we started. In our current, we build around 20 to 25 homes a year. So certainly not large, but not just one or two a year either. Our bread and butter really is single family residential. We do some attached, some multifamily, some boutique, commercial. Our main focus is we want to be downtown. We do have clients that ask us to come up to Ruta and Kessler. And we have done that a couple times, but for the most part, we're in a 3 to 5 mile radius of the circle.
I'm curious. Sorry, I'm going off a little off script here, but I'm curious why downtown for you guys. Obviously, that's something that Platt cares about a lot, but I'm wondering like where that drive comes from for you guys.
Yeah, so Micah always says that he starts itching if he goes north of 38th Street. Sorry for all of my wonderful Midtown friends on the call. But we just work and live downtown, work, live, play, right? Like our kid goes to school downtown. We try to shop downtown. We eat downtown. It's what we kind of know, right? So we know the neighborhoods. We know so many people, our communities down here. And so it's just kind of made sense for us to focus where it makes sense for us and where we believe and where we're most familiar. So that's why we started downtown. And then for us, Micah said, we do get requests to go on the west side and to Greenwood and north. And as of now, we've really tried to commit to staying a small company, where we know all of the trades on every job site and our project managers can drive from each one to the other every single day. And so we
Tatum, forgive my ignorance, but what do you mean when you say trades on each?
Sorry, all of our subcontractors, right? So
okay.
Yeah, the people actually doing the work on the job.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No worries. That's perfect. Again, an off-script question, but like, what is your two, like, what is your role in the company? Like, what do you spend most of your time working on for Compendium?
Sure, you can go first.
Yeah, we both work a lot on the front end through the process and the back end, but less day to day on the project. Our project managers, I failed to mention earlier, we're a team of 7 individuals, 3 of which are always in the field, and those are the guys that really enjoy being on site. Yeah, Mike.
I love Mike. Is his title project manager?
Yeah.
Guys, if you ever get
So
to meet Mike, you'll fall in love. He's amazing. He's so great.
yeah, so we try to hire people that are really, you know, in their element and then that job or doing what they want to do day in, day out. So back to your question of what we do, we're dealing a lot with clients on the front end, a lot of the design side, which is third party. We're not drawing it. We're working with an architect, but we're facilitating that. We do a lot of our own development work. So we're out, you know, finding the next kind of street where we want to do some development work, a lot of estimation, a lot of the building side of the business that probably, if you aren't familiar with the business, you may not know kind of what all that looks like, and you may not even care, which is fine.
Totally. Tatum, what about you?
Sure. So Mike and I literally work right next to each other all day, every day. So we have a very like fluid role situation in that it would probably be better if we didn't have it that way, but that's kind of where we are right now. So as Micah mentioned, we do work hand in hand on a lot of things, but me specifically, I'm really client focused. So I'm obviously helping on dirt acquisition and spec home listing. That's kind of the obvious part of me being a realtor. And then I work with our clients on all of the design. So not the drawings, but like finishes and helping to kind of pull all of the spaces together, and then timelines and budgets. So making sure that we can finish the job on time and hopefully at a budget that everybody's happiest with. And then I like to say Micah knows all things technical.
Yeah, that's great. Speaking of timelines, what is realistic? What's a realistic timeline for building a house?
Yeah. So from shovels and the dirt, we say 5 to 6 months. But there's obviously a ton of pre-construction timelines, and that can kind of vary from project to project, depending on how custom, are they using a kind of pre-existing floor plan, or are we starting, you know, with an architect with a blank slate and starting that process. Mainly about a year if you're going to do all of that all in, right? 4 to 6 months before, 6 months after. So we like to say a year is about a comfortable time period.
Yeah, Sylva, thanks for dropping that question in the chat. If anyone else has questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, and then we're going to leave time at the end for you guys to jump on and unmute yourself and ask. But yeah, Tatum, does time of year make a difference, frozen ground or whatever?
Yeah, it definitely does. You want to talk specifically?
Yeah, we basically just try not to start projects mainly from December through February for the most part. There's certainly years we're digging foundations in December and January, but there's also years that we don't dig anything till April. So we just try to stay away from foundations, concrete, excavations when it's really, really cold, and it stays cold. If it doesn't warm back up above 32 during the day, we're typically not. There's added time, there's added cost, there's added risk. So we usually can kind of navigate that. That said, if it's an emergency and someone's got to be in a house by a certain time, you can do it. It just takes a little extra work.
Does that mean, similar to realtors, you have a really busy season and then a less busy season, or do you guys just like fill that with different work, the more strategic?
Yeah, there's usually a big push to get in kind of foundations in the ground before, you know, early December, middle December, so that you're working on getting everything under roof. There are definitely weeks and times that it's just too cold for the guys to work outside, or they work harder to clean the 12 inches of snow off the framing areas and things than it does to actually frame the home. So it makes no sense to kind of work against yourself. But thankfully, we generally have reasonable enough weather that there's not complete shutdowns like there are in some other states and more extreme climates.
Yeah, totally. So Joel just asked a great question. What is the general cost variance between selecting a pre-designed build or custom building with an architect, assuming the square footage is the same? You guys don't have to give specific numbers, but if you could talk to that.
I can talk high level, but you can talk specific. So high level, yes, there is a cost associated, and Micah can talk maybe a little bit more specifically about that. But one of the biggest drivers that we actually find from clients in choosing to do that is just time. Especially right now, architects are crazy busy. And so sitting down and kind of starting from scratch is, one, overwhelming for clients, two, it takes time. And that process alone takes every bit of 4 months. So if clients aren't wanting to kind of do that, that's when I find that they go and kind of do a pre-selected design and still make tweaks and changes. But in general, 99% of our clients look at one of kind of 5 or 6 plans and are like, I like having something to respond to, at least as a starting point. You can kind of talk specifics.
Yeah, and specifically to the question of costs and the variances, of course, the cost of design and architecture can vary greatly. A very detailed, high-end, custom project can have thousands, tens of thousands of dollars in architecture fees on the front end before you even get into hard costs of a project. So it's hard to quantify where the hard costs might be different, but those soft costs or those front end costs are easily identifiable just by that. Like Tatum mentioned too, I think the other benefit of working, at least from a starting point, doesn't have to finish with the pre-design, but starting from a pre-designed home is we have a reasonable benchmark where we can say to build this floor plan as it sits now costs X. And for the majority of our clients, that's a good conversation to start from because which we'll talk a little bit more cost here in a moment, but because the cost of construction can be so different than just the existing market and what's out there. So it's easy to use that as a tool to say, hey, we know you want to modify this plan. We don't want to build it exactly just like this for you, but this is the price if you build it just from here. So it's nice from a budgetary perspective to have those front-end conversations with the budget.
Yeah, that's great. Diane, we're gonna hit your question in a second, but while we're on costs, let's talk more about, what goes into the cost of buying a home? What should agents make their clients aware of? Like, what should they be thinking about?
Sure. Well, I think it's important to identify that new construction typically, not always, but typically leads the market in cost per square foot when you look at it compared to existing comps of existing homes. I think that's for a couple of reasons. One, the price of land. I think we've all seen that here in the last couple of years ourselves. That basically, can you turn that off? Basically the cost of land to even buy dirt, you're sometimes spending a lot of money just on that before you even put shovels in the ground. After that, you're building to the newest code, you're building with the newest materials and methods, and then most clients are customizing, putting some personality into each of those new homes that's going to add cost as well. So I think by its nature, new construction is going to trend upwards. The other important thing to mention is most new construction, especially in the downtown market, you're going to see basements under most of these homes, not all, but many. We do that. I'd say 95 to 97% of our homes are on basements because there used to be something there. So we're digging out the old cellar, the old crawl space, the trash that's been pushed into holes, way back in the day. And we're getting down to soils that are capable of taking new foundations. So by the time you're that deep anyways, you might as well just put a basement in, add to it that we're in a basement market. As many of you know, that's a popular request for many for many clients. We do basements under, like I said, 95 to 97% of our homes. So when you look at kind of that mixed and upper square footage and again, this isn't where I'm not the realtor, so we can point to her, but I know a lot of times when you're looking at cost per square foot, it's a ratio of that mixed and upper, and that basement doesn't come into play. Whereas in new construction, that basement is almost, again, in downtown Indianapolis, included. Very nice spaces, sometimes adds quite a bit of cost. So you see cost of that add to the final price, but you may not see it in that mixed upper ratio, if that makes sense. I just taught myself in a circle. Does that make any sense at all?
No, that was very helpful. Thanks. Tatum, do you have anything to add?
I don't think so. I think, well, maybe one small thing. I think, and Micah kind of hit on this in talking about just new codes and different level of finish, but I think in new construction, at least we have even seen in our business over the past 5 years, like the expectation of the level of finish has just increasingly gone up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So before it was like, oh, wow, like we all understood that like quartz countertops were more expensive than laminate. Well, now like people just expect quartz as a starting point, right? And then quartzite is now the like next step up. Well,
why do you think that is? Why have expectations risen like that?
HGTV.
Without a doubt.
Yeah,
We didn't
totally.
plan that, by the
We
way.
didn't. That's really funny.
Hands down.
No, that makes sense.
Dangerous.
But for sure, it is definitely, right? Like before, chrome fixtures and bathrooms were a completely acceptable level of finish, and now it's not only black plumbing and champagne bronze, but now it's like Brizo fixtures instead of Delta, and because people like what they see. And I mean, I get it. It looks beautiful.
Well,
Yeah.
and we could go way down this rabbit hole, but we're surrounded by beautiful things, right? Like good design is incorporated in our life all the time. Look at the phone that's holding in your hands, the shoes that are on your feet. Like we are increasingly becoming a design focused kind of culture. And so I think it's natural to see that come into your own home. So
Does that, I'm curious, like with people like expecting that level, does that, I'm trying to figure out the right way to ask this question, but like, does that affect your guys' process at all? Or is it just like, okay, like, yeah, you can have that, it's just more?
Yeah. I
Okay.
think we try to be as upfront and transparent about pricing and what's included. And of course, we always tell people what you can and want to spend are often two different things, and how you choose to spend your money is totally up to you all. We ask our clients' realtors and our clients to think about, like, is that how you want to spend your money? Is that what you think the best use of the funds are? Those are kind of different conversations, but yeah, we absolutely do that. That's why our company works alongside of architects throughout the design process. We don't just come in at the end and bid it out and tell them what the price is. We're really cost conscious because we don't want a client to build this like beautiful dream home that then they don't want to spend that money on. And so constantly having budget conversations along the way is really important.
Yeah, that's great. Can we hit on Sylva's, what's the most interesting thing you found in a dig? Please tell me you have some good stories. Or if it's a body, just say you found nothing.
Really anticlimactic.
Did you find a car?
Yeah, we found,
A car?
Stuff like old bottles and like, people's time capsules that are all, it's just kind of weird, like old newspapers, but it's stuff full of jars and, whatever. But most of it's like old trashy stuff that's now novel because it's, 100 years old or whatever. But no skeletons, no bricks or chests of gold that at least I'm telling anyone about. No buried treasure. So
no bodies out at Central State, Jenny.
No.
That's, I'm really glad to hear that, actually.
Yeah.
That's so good. Okay, and while we're on it, do you guys do renovations on existing homes, attic additions, etc.?
Sure. I was actually typing out a response for Diane. So we do not do any remodeling. And we like to say, if you can live in it while we do it, we don't do it. So we're just really not set up in that way. Micah can talk a little bit more about the difference between kind of a remodeling business and our business. We do full gut renovations all the time. But it's really like kind of to the studs, take out everything and kind of start over. That's where we've kind of decided to specialize. You can talk a little bit.
Yeah, what is the difference between renovation and home building? Tell me more.
Well, as Tatum just mentioned, typically a whole home renovation is where you take as much out of the interior as possible. Sometimes, you walk into these, especially in historic areas where all the exterior walls are standing, the siding's on, and you walk in and we've taken all the joists out, like it's being held together with X bracing and chains. And like we have just a big box kind of sitting there. We can put everything back together from the inside out. A lot of times that's historically driven. That's not super cost effective sometimes, all that labor and effort to do so, but we're required to keep some things. Sometimes there's enough of a home that the shell itself, foundation, and the framing are worth keeping, so there's value there. So why demolish it or why take it out? I'd say the main difference with remodel is, like Tatum said, if you could live in it, if it's just a kitchen addition or just a bathroom, it's a very different business. It may not sound like it, but it is. How they bill, how they staff, how they schedule, kind of everything is a very different business model. So just not us.
Yeah. I would say we could do it, but we're not going to be anywhere close to cost effective. So we're not a good person to use for that.
Yeah, that makes total sense. That's great. Okay. What should agents know when working with you? And do you work with agents or do you work with their clients or both?
Yeah. So we've definitely done it both ways. Our preference is to work with the agent and the client. So in thinking about this, right, like we always prefer if an agent is the first person to reach out to us, so that one, we know that client's working with an agent. But then two, we hope that the agent participates throughout the entire kind of process. So that means architect meetings and selection meetings, and then actually like all of our kind of communication throughout the build as well. So that kind of is a little bit different. I think maybe we should have prefaced this at the very beginning. I think in my experience is working with a really small builder is totally different than working with a large production home builder. And that
do you want to go into that a little bit, Tatum? What is different? You're better. That's what it is.
No, I mean, we all know production builders aren't awesome about, I mean, they have a salesperson, right, that's in the model, and then they kind of like move you on to somebody else, and then that person's never copying in the agent, and you guys have no idea what's going on. At least that's been my experience for the most part. So in all of our client communication contracts, all of the agents are always included in that process. The only thing that they're not technically included in is our access to our online scheduling system, and that's only because only one person can have a login. We've actually encouraged our clients to make a generic one so that the realtors can also have access. That's kind of how we do it. 99% of our clients have construction loans, so we can talk a little bit more about that. But so essentially they own the dirt, they own the land throughout the process. So agents, y'all are always welcome on their job site if they are cool with that. And that means we pay out agents on the front end, which is kind of nice.
This is a little off script as well, but why is it important for your clients to have a realtor during the home building process?
Sure. Well, I think we see realtors add value, like Tatum says, when they're involved all the way through the process. So we've had multiple realtors bring us clients, help either locate the dirt if it's not one of our lots, and say, hey, we found this lot, they really like it, they just want to understand what they can build on it. Like, what's it going to cost to build on it? What's that process? So they can kind of facilitate that, the communication of this is what we think they want, this is where we're at. I think A lot of times agents add value being a sounding board, being that third party saying, yes, we think that if you invest X now, you'll be fine in 2 years, 3 years, or even in 6 months, helping clients understand that value equation once we've provided that information. Agents a lot of times can answer questions, depending on the area maybe that we can't about certain areas, or resells, or they just can really kind of make a client feel better, or raise their hand and say, no, you shouldn't do that. Or yeah, spend that money, just know that you may or that's an investment you're choosing to make, and it may not be one that is profitable if and when you have to sell. So I think that's the main thing. We've had, it all comes down to the client. We try to meet our clients and the agents involved where they're at. We've had some clients that are really, really busy, whether that's because they're in a profession that demands a lot of their time, or maybe it's just not their thing and not what they want to do. We've had realtors and third parties involved that make almost all the decisions, and kind of the client checks in at the end, almost like fixer-upper style, like, here's your house, hope you like it. That's atypical, but it has happened. To the other, like I said, where there's just that trusted third party that really can bring some value and saying, yes, this sounds right, yes, this is smart, yes, do this, don't do that.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. Joel asked the question, is the timeline for a full gut remodel the same as a new build?
It can be. It can be a lot more. So our last house, we actually lived in a full gut renovation that we completed. I think it actually took us 4.5 months. And right now we're doing one that'll probably take us 9 months. Ran into some unknown issues that we were going to have. So it really kind of depends on the complexity of the project, the site, what you're doing. A lot of full gut remodels are still getting, like, I don't know that we've done one recently that hadn't still had either some foundation work or like a large addition in addition to the full gut. So it really just depends on the project.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so I kind of skipped over this when we were talking about the cost of buying a home. You touched on it a little bit, but let's go over lending options. What should people know about construction loans? I know you're not a lender, but from what you can share.
So as I mentioned, we're a small company. So 99% of our clients do carry construction loans. And or lot loans, depending. So if they want to go out and purchase their own lot, but don't have right now what seems like $80,000 to $200,000 to buy a lot, can work with the bank to do a 1 or 2 year lot loan. Most of them are requiring 10 to 20% down. And then they have a year or 2 years to then start construction. Most of the time, then the construction loan works to kind of buy out that lot loan. Just for reference, that might be a little bit more confusing, but construction loans, I talked a lot about this with Jenny, I think, a couple months ago. I say a construction loan is so similar to a normal mortgage. It's just everything happens on the front end, and then it acts like a line of credit. So your closing happens on the front end. The appraisal happens off of the plans. 90% of them lock in the credit or the interest rate on the front end, and it's a one-time close. You just do all of it before construction instead of at the end. I think it's really important to ask lender. Not every lender does a construction loan. In fact, most don't. It's really specialized. So ask them those things though, like, yes, as Kristen said, a lot of times the realtor gets paid at the front end too. She's right, which is awesome. But don't like stop showing up to your clients' meetings with the builder, right? Just because you got paid. Who do I recommend?
Yeah, I was just about to ask that as well. For lenders, who do you like to work with? And also architects, if that's like a big piece of it, do you have preferred lenders and architects that your clients work with?
Yeah, so most of our clients end up with First Internet Bank for the construction loan. They do the one-time close. They lock in the interest rate. Huntington also has a really good construction loan program. And who would be our third one?
Old National, maybe.
Old National, maybe. But Wayne, you know, Jenny, outside of like Platt people, we've never had anyone use Wayne.
No one else uses Wayne besides Platt. So true.
I think it's just not like local, right?
No, yeah, it's for anyone wondering, that's a bank out in Richmond that Mark has ties to. So some of us use it. So.
For portfolios. And then architects, I would say the majority of our business either utilizes Trade Design Studio, so Melissa Iannucci, who has a beautiful desk in her office if anyone needs her. She's amazing. And then we use Demerly Architects, specifically Jason Wolf at Demerly.
That's great. Thanks, guys. Okay, what
sorry, Rosie, can I add on about the construction loan?
oh my God, please go for it.
So a couple of things that I think are really important. One, construction loans are always going to have a slightly higher interest rate than a normal end loan mortgage. That's just how they have to write them. You can negotiate that. Then once you convert from a construction loan to a perm at the end, that the interest rate can be lower. So that's really important to note. And then your actual closing costs are higher on a construction loan as well. And here's why. And it's actually to your client's benefit, but they do have to pay for it. So let's say there's a $200,000 construction loan. At closing, your builder gets a 5% soft cost draw, which probably pays the architect that they've been paying for all along for your clients. Then roughly once a month, the builder will send what's called a draw to the bank, which is essentially kind of a budget of all the things that have been completed over the past 30 days, and then the dollar amounts assigned to that. So your clients sign off on that, making sure that your builder isn't getting ahead of the project, which is good. But then when that happens, the bank actually sends that to the title company to make sure that no mechanics liens have been put onto the title, so that your builder is paying their bills. So this is a good thing, but they actually do have to pay for those repulls of the title. So it is a little higher. That's it.
Great. Okay, last question from my end, and then we're gonna open it up for other people. How can agents best help clients through the building process?
Yeah, do you wanna take that one?
Sure. I had a couple thoughts there. One was help your clients understand on the front end the cost of new construction and help them expect it to be a little bit higher than existing comps are probably seen in the same neighborhood, so that they don't get sticker shock when discussions occur with budgets and what things cost when they're being done completely new on the front end. Help shape your client's goals for the home, understand that future impact on the sale down the road. So helping them understand the perspective of a future sale, and if that's important. And that is important to some of our clients, and it's not to others. We build homes all the time, and people are like, hey, I know I'm gonna probably get moved with my job in 3 to 4 years. I just have to make sure this is a very smart build. Not that they wanna live in a spec home, but not that there's anything wrong with spec homes. I'm just saying, like, not that you build it for someone else, but you just, and then we have other clients who are like, hey, we're probably this is gonna be our last home for 20 years and I want what I want. So having that kind of back and forth conversation in some of those areas, I think might be helpful.
Yeah, I would add the lot cost in new, especially right now. We have clients reach out to us all the time. They're like, hey, can you build a house for $300,000 in X neighborhood? And we would love to, but you can't build, well, you probably shouldn't put a $200,000 house on a $100,000 piece of dirt. Most banks will even tell you that really 20% of the total cost should be the dirt. And so just right now, it's just downtown with dirt costs. I think having agents talk to their clients about that is really helpful, and helping understand, you know, what it actually looks like right now, because most people don't. I mean, they know prices of houses are crazy expensive, but most people aren't looking at what the actual lot cost is. Yes, dirt is so expensive.
Yeah, I didn't know that that should be only 20% of your budget. That is a good tip. Okay, fellow plat people on the call, what questions do you have? Your turn to open it up. Ask whatever you want. We will sit here in awkward silence until at least one person asks a question. So go for it.
I do have a question. So when we first moved to Ransom Place, I got involved pretty quickly with neighbors who were fighting like a large apartment building coming in that they assumed probably assumed rightly, would be mostly students. And so I got to see kind of the IHPC side of things, and like building and getting things approved and having multiple times going through to make sure it fit, you know, with the zoning and with the approvals for, you know, appropriateness and certificates of appropriateness. So that process, can you talk a little bit about that as far as like matching existing things, or trying to find things that really fit with a given neighborhood versus going more modern?
Yeah, I can take that one. We work in historic areas all the time and understand those processes and what they're gonna want to see. We've also, as Tatum mentioned, partnered with a couple different architects who are well versed in that as well. So our intent is always to make a proposal to the IHPC, which is that Indiana Historic Preservation Commission, and the staff that we know is going to align with what they want to see. We never try to push through something that, like, so on the front end, we'll have those conversations with the client and say, hey, if you're looking at this lot, so just one example, looked at a lot yesterday for a client, there's a very, very small 1-story cottage next to it, like directly to the left. The client's top 10 wish list was 3 stories tall with a rooftop deck. Which that could be great, but right there in a historic area, from a massing perspective, that's probably not going to get done, especially at the front of the home, unless you push that addition and the deck all the way to the back. So it's those kind of conversations we have. We handle all that for our clients. We shepherd everything through the process. We do all the paperwork, we do all the mailings, we do all the interaction with staff.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Our clients just get the nice stamp of approved. But it is definitely kind of a specialized marketplace in some of those areas, and depending on the block and depending on what's around you, it can be a very complex, difficult process, or it can be somewhat pretty like, hey, you know what's there, what's on the block, as long as you look similar to it, you're going to be okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Damn it. I try so hard to never be muted when I'm talking, but so anyway, this is a very weird plug, but if you guys are familiar with the downtown division of my board, their upcoming meeting in August is about buying and listing in the historic communities. So that could be helpful if you're thinking about that question. Anyone else? Okay, Joel, is the cost to build the same regardless of location?
No. Go ahead.
No, without a doubt, the hardest side of working with our clients is some of those cost budgets and discussions. We always say our process is kind of like a big funnel. You start up here with a lot of unknowns and you kind of keep working down towards more of the details. And so early on, we're talking about just things like you guys are with your clients, like, hey, what's your budget? What's that want to get you for square footage? What locations and neighborhoods are you? What materials and finishes are you expecting for that? So because there's so many varied answers to all that, we've seen some very, very expensive small homes built that have pretty large cost per square foot. But either because of where they are, because like I just mentioned, like maybe they're in a small cottage neighborhood, and so they have to be kind of cottagey looking from the outside. But the inside you walk in, it's very modern and very updated and great. To, you know, you could build something much larger, a little more cost effective to build, that's bringing down the total cost, and simpler finishes on the inside, which is a personal decision, of course. So no, I don't mean to be nebulous, but it really is hard to kind of say, does location drive? Location absolutely drives the cost of dirt. Location absolutely drives whether you're in an IHBC zone and the costs associated with that, the materials and methods associated with that, and what you're gonna be forced to do. But really outside of that, what's left is, for the most part, client-driven discussions of how they want to spend their money.
Yeah, I think specifically building in an IHPC neighborhood without a doubt adds costs. I think that's kind of like the simplest. Like, you can only do a certain type of siding, only you know, particular types of windows, and it's just very regulated, and they get to say. So it's definitely more expensive.
Any other questions from anyone on the call? All right, I'll call it. Micah Tatum, thank you so much, truly. That was so helpful, and we really value your experience, so thanks for sharing.
Sure, thanks for having us.
Yeah. Guys, next month we are going to be joined by Blake Johnson. He's the president of Indie Hub, and he's going to be talking to us a little bit about, if you're not familiar with Indie Hub, they're an organization that works with 20s and 30-somethings networking in the city, especially when people are new and moving to Indianapolis. So they're going to share a little bit about what they're seeing in their work recently. So hope you can join, and have a great day. Thanks for coming.